Okay, so you're thinking of sprucing up your home with some real wood furniture. That's great.
Mm,
But I get it. Like, it can be super overwhelming. There are just so many options out there. How do you even know where to start?
right.
Like, how do you pick the right type of wood, and then make sure it actually goes with, like, your style?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, how do you even know if it's eco-friendly? It can be a lot.
Yeah.
But don't worry, you've come to the right place. We are going to dive deep into all that today
We are.
with an article called Wood Furniture Ideas for a Stylish Home Makeover.
Okay.
And by the end of this, like, deep dive, you'll be a total pro. Not only will you know exactly how to pick out the perfect pieces for your home, but you also know how to care for them, to keep them looking good for, like, years to come.
Yeah. Wood furniture, I think it just brings a different warmth and character to a space compared to other materials.
Totally. And speaking of character, the article talks about how rustic design has become, like, incredibly popular lately. I wonder if it's, like, that desire to connect with nature or maybe, like, that kind of handcrafted feel. What do you think?
I think so. It's like a craving for authenticity, I think. A lot of people are seeking that these days.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, like using reclaimed wood is a big part of that. It's this idea of like taking something old and giving it a new purpose.
Oh, totally. Like giving it new life. I've always loved the idea of reclaimed wood. There's like each piece have a story to tell.
Yeah.
But for someone who is like just starting out, how do they even know what kind of wood to look for?
Yeah.
The article mentions hardwoods and softwoods. Are those like the main category?
They are the two main categories, yeah. And,
Right.
hardwoods like oak are known for being super strong and durable. They come from deciduous trees.
Yeah, right.
Oak was often used for those big, sturdy dining tables in old farmhouses, the ones that could withstand generations of family meals.
That makes sense. Yeah. So if you're looking for like a piece that will last forever, hardwood's the way to go.
Yeah.
Right. The article also mentions walnut as a hardwood. I love that one. It has that gorgeous deep color.
Yes, and walnut was actually a favorite choice during the mid-century modern design movement.
Really?
Yeah, and not just for its looks, its strength actually symbolized like post-war optimism, I think, and progress.
Wow.
So if you're drawn to that era's clean lines and functional designs, walnut might be the perfect choice for you.
That is so interesting.
Correct.
Okay, so hardwoods are durable. They last a long time. What about softwoods? I always think of those more for like outdoor furniture.
You're right, some softwoods are.
Okay.
They come from coniferous trees, the evergreens with needles. They tend to be like lighter and less dense than hardwoods. Now, while you're right that some softwoods like cedar are fantastic for outdoor use because of their natural resistance to like decay, they can also be used indoors. Pine, for instance, has that classic like knotty look that's very popular.
Oh, yeah, pine. It definitely has like a more rustic feel. But wouldn't it be more prone to like scratches and dents compared to something like oak?
That's true. Pine is softer, so it might require a bit more, care to keep it looking its best.
Right. So maybe not the best for a house full of like rowdy kids and pets.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got hardwoods and softwoods. But the article also mentions a third category, engineered woods. Is that like even a thing for furniture? I feel like I've only heard of that with flooring.
They're becoming more popular. Engineered woods offer a more, budget-friendly and often a more sustainable option.
Okay.
They're made by, like, combining wood fibers or veneers or particles with adhesives. Plywood, for example, is like layers of thin wood veneer glued together.
So they're like strong and stable, but maybe not as like visually appealing as a solid piece of, say, oak or walnut.
Exactly. They're commonly used for things like subfloors or structural components, but they might not have the same visual appeal as a solid piece of wood.
Right. So if someone is really drawn to like the unique grain patterns and character of natural wood, they might want to stick with hardwoods or softwoods.
Oh, I think so, yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the different types of wood. What about like different furniture styles? The article delves into those, and I was particularly struck by its description of mid-century modern. I feel like that's everywhere these days.
Oh, yeah, it's very popular.
It's so sleek and retro, I'm picturing like a walnut credenza with those iconic tapered legs.
Oh, the hairpin legs. I've always found those to be a little wobbly, though. Have
Yeah.
you noticed that?
I hadn't thought about it much, to be honest.
Yeah, I always wonder, like, is it more about the look than the practicality?
Yeah. Maybe it's a case of like form over function.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, maybe there are ways to reinforce them to make them sturdier.
Mhm.
Okay, well, moving on from potentially wobbly furniture, the article also talks about contemporary minimalism.
Yeah.
I feel like this is all about creating those, like, calm, uncluttered spaces that everyone wants these days, right?
It is. I think a lot of people find it appealing in today's, busy world.
Yeah. It's
Huh.
like, give me all the natural light, the simple lines, all that Zen stuff.
Mm.
But doesn't it run the risk of feeling, like, a little cold or impersonal if you're not careful?
Yeah, that's true. But that's where, like, the choice of wood can really make a difference.
Okay.
Minimalism often uses light woods like maple or birch, but you can definitely introduce warmth through different accents. You could even use, like, a piece of furniture with a live edge to bring in that organic element.
Oh, that's a good idea. I like that. So even within a minimalist aesthetic, you can still, like, play around with different wood elements to create, like, a sense of balance?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Now, at the opposite end of the spectrum, there's, like, traditional elegance, which I feel like never really goes out of style.
No, it doesn't.
It's, like, classic. The article describes it as formal and ornate, with pieces like, I don't know, carved headboards, furniture with those cabriole legs, that kind of thing. I have to admit, I've always been a little intimidated by traditional style. It feels very, I don't know, grand, maybe too fussy for my taste. What kind of wood is usually used in traditional furniture?
Well, mahogany is a classic choice for traditional furniture.
Mahogany.
It has that rich reddish-brown color, and it's often carved into those intricate details. You'll also see, like, cherry used quite a bit, especially for pieces that are meant to be passed down through generations.
Oh, yeah, cherry. But wait, isn't that the wood that changes color over time?
It is.
Wouldn't that make it kind of unpredictable for, like, a formal style?
I think that's what makes it so interesting. Like, that gradual deepening of the color just adds a layer of history and character to the piece. It becomes more beautiful as it ages,
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got rustic, we've got mid-century modern, we've got contemporary minimalism, and we've got traditional elegance. But what about someone who loves, like, a little bit of everything? What do they do?
They can go for transitional style.
Transitional, okay.
It's all about, like, blending different elements to create a look that's uniquely you. It's about embracing the mix.
I love that. It's like you do you,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely what I'm drawn to, like creating a space that feels personal and unique and not like straight out of a catalog.
Right.
But what about mixing wood tones? That's always intimidated me. I love the idea in theory, but I'm always like afraid of ending up with a chaotic mishmash.
I get that, but it's not as daunting as it seems.
Okay.
There are some simple guidelines you can follow to create, like, a sense of balance and cohesion. For example, the article talks about having a dominant wood tone.
A dominant wood tone. Is that like choosing one type of wood to be like the star of the room?
Exactly. You got it.
Okay.
It sets the foundation for the room. It could be the flooring, maybe a large piece of furniture like a dining table, or even the kitchen cabinets.
Okay. So let's say my floors are a beautiful dark walnut. Would that be my dominant wood tone?
It would be.
Okay.
And then you can add, like, contrasting accents in either lighter or warmer tones.
Gotcha. So maybe like lighter maple chairs around the walnut dining table or a pine bookshelf in the living room to lighten things up a bit.
Exactly.
But how do you actually make sure all those different wood tones like actually go together?
It's about paying attention to the undertones of the wood, just like you would with paint colors.
Okay, undertones, right.
Yeah, so wood can have cool or warm undertones. Cool undertones have more like grayish or bluish hints, while warm undertones have more reddish or yellowish hues. And the key is to keep those undertones complementary. So if your dominant wood tone has warm undertones, you'll want to choose accent pieces that also have warm undertones.
Okay, so it's all about like creating harmony, not just throwing random woods together.
Exactly. You got it.
Okay, this is all making so much more sense now. So we talked about like the types of wood, some popular furniture styles, even touched on mixing wood tones. But what about like the actual process of choosing furniture for each room? Where do you even begin?
That's where the fun begins. The article actually breaks down some helpful, like, room by room inspiration. Let's start with, like, the living room, the heart of the home. What kind of atmosphere are you going for in your living room?
Oh, I'm definitely thinking cozy and inviting. You know, a place to curl up with a good book or hang out with friends and family. I'm thinking like a sectional sofa, a big coffee table, maybe a bookshelf for displaying some favorite things.
It sounds lovely, and the article really emphasizes how wood furniture can really bring out that cozy feel.
Okay, good.
It suggests considering, like, a statement piece, like an entertainment center, to kind of, like, anchor the space.
Oh yeah, entertainment centers are essential these days.
Right.
And there are just so many styles to choose from. You could go for like a sleek modern console or something more traditional, with built-in shelves and cabinets.
Yeah, and since you mentioned wanting that cozy vibe, maybe incorporating some rustic elements could be really effective.
Okay, yeah.
Like, what about a coffee table with a live edge? Or some reclaimed wood shelves to add warmth and texture?
I love that idea. Yeah, it would definitely add some character. What about side tables? Those are like often overlooked, but they can really like complete the look of a living room.
They really can. And since you mentioned having walnut floors, you could play with contrasting wood tones for your side tables.
Okay.
Maybe some lighter maple or cherry pieces to like create some visual interest.
I love those suggestions. It's all coming together now. But speaking of like gathering spaces, I know we talked about wanting a dining table for like big family meals.
Yes.
What kind of wood would be best for that?
For a dining table that needs to be both sturdy and stylish, you can't go wrong with oak.
Oak.
It's known for its strength, its durability, and it can really handle years of use.
I love that. It just has that like timeless classic feel.
Right.
Speaking of timeless, the article mentions china cabinets. Do you think those are like still a thing in modern homes? Like, are people still using those?
I think it depends.
Okay.
While china cabinets might seem a bit traditional, they can be like a really beautiful way to showcase your china and glassware. You can also choose a more modern or transitional style to kind of complement your other furniture.
Okay, good point.
Or, if you're tight on space, you could opt for a buffet or sideboard, which can provide both storage and a surface for serving.
Right. Makes sense. Now let's move to the kitchen. I feel like wood can really warm up a kitchen, which can sometimes feel a bit sterile,
Oh, for sure. And the article actually has some great tips for incorporating wood into the kitchen.
Okay, good.
It mentions butcher block countertops, open shelving, and bar stools. All great ways to add warmth and character.
Ooh, butcher block countertops.
Yeah.
They're beautiful and so practical. They are.
I also love the idea of open wooden shelves to display like colorful dishes and glassware. It just makes the kitchen feel more inviting,
It does, yeah. And what about bar stools?
Oh, yeah, good point.
Since you're into the mix and match aesthetic, you could choose stools that complement the wood tones in your dining table and chairs.
Okay.
You could even go with something like stools with wooden seats and metal legs for a bit of like an industrial touch.
I like that. Okay, now let's talk about the bedroom. It's like our sanctuary, the place we go to rest and recharge.
Yeah.
How do we use wood furniture to create that sense of calm and tranquility?
I think the choice of bed frame is key there.
Okay.
The article talks about both platform beds and more traditional frames with like upholstered headboards.
Okay.
What kind of feel are you going for in your bedroom?
I'm really drawn to a minimalist aesthetic. I just want it to feel calm and uncluttered, but also warm and inviting, not too stark.
I get that.
A platform bed could be a good option then. It could be. And to add warmth, you could choose one made from like cherry or walnut. Those have those warmer undertones we talked about.
A cherry platform bed. Okay. I love it. It's perfect.
Uh-huh.
But what about storage? Bedrooms always need more storage, right?
Always. And the article has some great suggestions for that.
Okay, good.
It talks about using dressers, nightstands, and even having a vanity or desk area for storage.
Ooh, I love the idea of a vanity desk combo, especially since I'm working with a smaller bedroom. It's like two birds with one stone.
Yeah. And you could choose a piece that's made from a lighter wood, like maple, to keep the space feeling bright and airy.
Love it. Okay, so we've got the bedroom covered. Now, what about a home office? A lot of people work from home these days, and it's kind of tricky to make those spaces both functional and stylish. What are your thoughts?
Well, the article suggests choosing a desk with like practical features, built-in storage, maybe an adjustable surface.
Right.
And then you can choose a style that fits your like workflow,
Okay.
whether that's modern or mid-century or traditional.
I'm thinking more modern for my office. I just want it to feel like clean and organized.
I hear that.
I don't need any extra clutter in my life.
Right.
So what kind of desk would you recommend for that kind of aesthetic?
Maybe a desk with a sleek, minimalist design, perhaps made from like maple or birch.
Okay.
And then for storage, you could use like tall bookcases with sturdy wooden shelves to keep everything organized.
Those are great ideas. I'm definitely going to need all the storage space I can get. But what about adding some personality to this space? Like, how do you make it feel less like a sterile office and more like, part of your home?
That's a great point. Small wood accents can really make a difference, like a pencil cup or a tray for holding papers, or even just a nice file holder.
Right.
And you can choose accents that complement the wood tones in your desk and bookcases.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked about choosing the right type of wood. We've talked about different furniture styles. We've even talked about mixing wood tones and choosing furniture for different rooms. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to go back to something we talked about earlier. Caring for wood furniture. I know it's an investment, and I want to make sure I'm doing everything I can to protect it. What are the absolute basics when it comes to, like, caring for wood furniture?
The basics are pretty simple. Just dust regularly, wipe down surfaces with a damp cloth every now and then, and avoid using harsh chemicals that can damage the finish.
Okay, that sounds pretty manageable. But what about polishing? Does all wood furniture need to be polished?
It depends on the finish. Some finishes, like lacquer or polyurethane, are pretty low maintenance and don't require regular polishing.
Okay.
But if you have a piece with an oil finish, it's good to apply a furniture oil or beeswax every so often to keep the wood from drying out.
Gotcha. So it's important to know what kind of finish you have before you go crazy with the polish.
Exactly. And speaking of protecting your furniture, the article also talks about the importance of using coasters and placemats.
Coasters, yes. I've been guilty of forgetting those in the past. But I'm curious, why are they so important? Is it just about, like, preventing water rings on the surface?
It's more than that. Remember, wood is porous.
Oh, right.
It can absorb moisture, and even a small spill can seep into the wood and cause damage over time.
Okay, so it's not just about aesthetics. It's about, like, preventing long-term damage. Coasters, it is.
Yeah.
What about humidity? The article mentions that too, but I didn't quite catch why it matters.
Yeah, so humidity can have a big impact on wood furniture.
Okay.
When the air is humid, wood absorbs that moisture and expands. And when the air is dry, wood releases moisture and contracts. So if the humidity levels in your home fluctuate a lot, it can cause your furniture to warp or crack over time.
Wow. I had no idea it was that sensitive. So what can you do to prevent that?
The ideal relative humidity for wood furniture is between 40% and 60%.
Okay.
You can monitor the humidity in your home with a hygrometer.
Right.
And if needed, you can use a humidifier in the winter when it's dry, or a dehumidifier in the summer when it's more humid to keep things balanced.
Okay, good to know. So monitoring and adjusting the humidity levels is key.
Yeah.
Are there any other, like, preventative measures you can take?
Definitely. Avoid putting wood furniture near heat sources or air vents, since those can dry the wood out faster.
Okay.
And direct sunlight can fade the finish over time, so keep that in mind when placing your furniture.
Got it. And you mentioned earlier that different finishes require different care routines. Can you talk about that a bit more?
Sure. Finishes like lacquer or polyurethane are pretty low maintenance. They don't need much beyond regular dusting and wiping with a damp cloth. But if you have a piece with an oil finish, you'll want to nourish the wood every so often with some furniture oil or beeswax to keep it from drying out.
So how can you tell what type of finish you have?
Oil finishes tend to feel warmer and softer to the touch, whereas lacquer and polyurethane have a harder, more like plasticky feel. But if you're ever unsure, you can always ask, like, a furniture expert or do some research online.
Good tips. Now, the article briefly mentions sustainability when it comes to wood furniture. I'd love to dig a little deeper into that.
Yeah.
What are some things to consider if you're trying to be, like, eco-conscious?
Well, one of the best things you can do is look for furniture made from FSC certified wood.
Okay, FSC certified. We touched on that earlier, but what does that actually mean?
FSC stands for the Forest Stewardship Council.
Okay.
It's an international organization that sets standards for responsible forest management.
So it's not just about planting trees, it's about a whole system of ethical and sustainable practices.
Exactly.
That's great. So by choosing FSC certified wood furniture, you're supporting those practices, right?
You are.
And helping protect our forests. What about reclaimed wood? That seems like an eco-friendly option too.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like giving a piece of history a new purpose.
Yeah, reclaimed wood comes from like old buildings or barns that are being torn down.
Yeah.
It's a great way to give old materials a new life and reduce the demand for new timber.
So we've got FSC certified wood.
Yeah.
And we've got reclaimed wood. Are there any other things consumers can do to make sustainable choices when it comes to wood furniture?
One of the most important things is to invest in quality pieces that are built to last.
Right. That buy less, buy better philosophy.
Exactly.
It's about choosing well-made furniture that you'll love for years instead of buying something cheap that'll fall apart quickly.
Exactly.
And wood furniture is perfect for that because it's naturally so durable. It's an investment that can last a lifetime. You can even pass it down to future generations, right?
Absolutely. And as we've been talking about all this, I've been thinking about how much wood furniture can really transform a home. It's not just about the way it looks, it's about the feeling it creates.
I completely agree. It brings like a sense of warmth and comfort and natural beauty to a space. And I think that's something we all crave, especially in today's world, which can feel so like fast-paced and technology-driven.
It's like bringing a piece of the outdoors in, you know?
Totally.
Creating a more grounding and peaceful environment.
Okay, so before we move on, I'm curious, what's one piece of furniture that you're like most excited to find for your own home now that we've, talked about all this? And what story do you hope it will tell?
That's a good question. You've given me a lot to think about. I think I'm drawn to pieces with a bit of history,
Yeah.
So maybe an antique writing desk or a refinished farmhouse table, something that's seen a few generations,
Oh, I love that. Pieces with a past are always so much more interesting than something brand new.
Right.
They just add so much depth and character. It's like they have their own stories to tell. But how do you make sure, like, a piece with a history actually fits in with your existing furniture?
Well, that's where, a little design savvy comes in. We talked about mixing wood tones, but it's also about understanding how to, blend different styles effectively. You can have a mix of old and new pieces without it feeling like a jumbled mess,
Okay, so how do you do that? Like, what are the secrets to creating that cohesive look?
Well, I think, first and foremost, you need a clear vision for your space.
Right.
What kind of atmosphere are you trying to create? Cozy and inviting, sleek and modern, maybe a bit of both.
Right. Having a vision is key. But what if you're drawn to, elements from different styles? How do you keep it from feeling too eclectic?
That's where understanding, the underlying principles of each style can help.
Okay.
For instance, if you love the warmth of rustic design, but you also appreciate those clean lines of mid-century modern, you can find pieces that kind of bridge those two styles.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Maybe a farmhouse table with modern chairs or a mid-century sofa with rustic wood accents.
So it's about finding those common threads, right? What about color? How do you make sure the wood tones actually work well with the other colors in your home?
That's a great point. It all comes down to understanding undertones, just like we talked about with mixing wood species.
Okay, undertones, right.
If your overall color palette leans warm, think earth tones, reds, yellows, then warmer wood tones like cherry or mahogany will complement that. But if your space has lots of cool colors like blues, greens, grays, then cooler toned woods like walnut or maple create a more harmonious look.
So you're matching the undertones of the wood to the undertones of the other colors in the room.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. But what about creating contrast? Can you mix warm and cool tones together, or would that be too much?
You can definitely create contrast, but it's about doing it strategically. For example, if you have a room with light colored walls and floors, a darker wood piece can create a striking focal point. Or if you have a lot of dark wood furniture, you can lighten things up with lighter accents, rugs, curtains, throw pillows, that kind of thing.
Right. It's all about that balance between harmony and contrast.
Exactly.
And I imagine the size and scale of the furniture play a role as well.
For sure. You don't want to overcrowd a room with too much large-scale furniture.
Right.
Or, on the other hand, have pieces that are too small and get lost in the space. It's about finding that visual balance.
This makes me think about furniture arranging. That's something I've always struggled with.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any tips for making sure everything flows well and creates that sense of harmony?
One tip I always give is to think about traffic flow.
Okay.
You want to be able to move easily through the space without, bumping into things.
Makes sense.
Also, think about the focal point of the room. It could be a fireplace, a window with a view, or even a statement piece of furniture. Arrange everything else around that focal point to create balance.
That's great advice. I never really thought about traffic flow before. Now, going back to your own furniture quest, you mentioned you're drawn to pieces with history. Have you thought any more about what specific piece you're most excited to find?
As we've been talking about rustic design and that connection to nature, I've been picturing a live edge coffee table.
Oh, yeah.
Each one is unique, and I think it would add a touch of organic warmth to my living room, which is otherwise pretty modern.
Oh, a live edge coffee table would be gorgeous. What kind of wood are you thinking?
I'm leaning towards walnut. I just love that rich chocolatey brown color, and the grain is so beautiful. It has that timeless quality that I think would work well with my existing decor.
Walnut is a great choice.
Yeah.
But you're also looking for a piece with a story, right? What
Yeah.
kind of story do you hope this coffee table will tell?
I'm picturing it coming from a tree that stood for like centuries, witnessing all the changing seasons. Maybe it even provided shade for, generations of families having picnics or kids playing.
That is a beautiful thought. It's like bringing a piece of that history into your home.
Exactly. It reminds us that when we choose wood furniture, we're not just choosing like a material, we're choosing a piece of nature.
So we've talked about all these different furniture styles, rustic, modern, traditional. But is there anything new on the horizon? Like any emerging styles that we should be looking out for?
That's a great question. There's always something new popping up in the design world. There's a style that I've seen gaining traction lately. It's called Japandi.
Japandi, that's a new one. What is that?
Like a blend of Scandinavian minimalism and Japanese aesthetics. Think clean lines, natural materials, a sense of serenity.
Ooh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
I can already picture it. Lots of light wood, simple forms. It sounds very calming.
It is. It's about creating that clutter-free environment that's both stylish and functional. And wood plays a big role in this style.
So how does wood furniture actually fit into the Japandi aesthetic? Like what kind of woods and styles would you see?
Well, you'd often see lighter woods like oak and maple, with their beautiful grain patterns. And the furniture pieces themselves are usually simple and functional with clean lines and a focus on like the craftsmanship. You might see low-profile platform beds, minimalist dining tables, and sleek storage.
I love that. Sounds like the perfect style for someone who wants a minimalist look, but still wants their home to feel like warm and inviting.
Exactly. It's a style that celebrates the beauty of simplicity.
I love that. So as we've been talking about all these styles, I've realized there's no one right style.
Right.
It's about finding what speaks to you. Yeah.
Exactly. And the beauty of wood furniture is that it can be adapted to any style.
So true. Well, earlier we talked about the importance of caring for wood furniture, and you mentioned you had some more in-depth tips.
I do. We talked about the basics, dusting, wiping down, but there's more to it if you want to keep your furniture looking great for years to come. Remember how we talked about wood being porous?
Yes. That's why coasters are so important.
Exactly. But it also means that wood can be affected by the humidity in the air.
Oh, right. The article mentioned that.
Yeah.
How does humidity actually affect wood furniture?
Well, when the air is humid, wood absorbs moisture and expands. And when the air is dry, it releases moisture and contracts.
Okay.
So big swings in humidity can cause your furniture to warp or crack over time.
Wow, I had no idea. It was so sensitive.
Right.
So how do you prevent that from happening?
The ideal humidity for wood furniture is between 40% and 60%.
Okay.
You can monitor the humidity with a hygrometer
Okay.
and use a humidifier during the dry winter months or a dehumidifier in the summer, to keep things balanced.
Okay, so monitoring and adjusting is key. Are there any other preventative measures you can take?
Yes. Avoid putting wood furniture near heat sources or air vents. And direct sunlight can also fade the finish over time, so try to protect your furniture from that.
Got it. Now, you also mentioned that different finishes require different care routines.
Right. Finishes like lacquer or polyurethane are pretty low maintenance, but if you have a piece with an oil finish, you'll want to nourish the wood every so often with like furniture oil or beeswax.
Okay. So how can you tell what kind of finish you have?
Well, oil finishes tend to feel warmer and softer to the touch, and lacquer and polyurethane have a harder, more plasticky feel.
Okay, I see.
If you're not sure, ask an expert or just look it up online.
Good to know. Now, the article briefly mentions sustainability when it comes to buying wood furniture.
Right.
I'd love to dive into that a bit. What are some things to keep in mind if you want to make eco-conscious choices?
One of the best things you can do is look for furniture made from FSC certified wood.
We talked about FSC certification earlier, but can you remind us what that means?
FSC stands for the Forest Stewardship Council. It's a group that sets standards for responsible forest management. So when you see that FSC label, it means the wood comes from a forest that's managed in a way that's good for the environment,
So it's not just about planting trees, it's about the whole process.
Exactly. It's about sustainable harvesting, workers' rights, respecting local communities.
So by choosing FSC certified wood, you're supporting those practices.
Yes, you are.
Awesome. What about reclaimed wood? That seems pretty eco-friendly too.
It is. Reclaimed wood comes from old buildings that are being torn down,
Right. It's like giving those materials a second life.
Yeah, and it reduces the demand for new timber. And often, reclaimed wood has this beautiful patina, this character, that you just don't find in new wood.
I love that. So we've got FSC certified wood and we've got reclaimed wood. Are there any other things people can do to be more sustainable when it comes to wood furniture?
Invest in quality pieces that are built to last.
Okay.
Buy less, buy better.
Yeah.
That idea.
Right, right.
It's about choosing well-made furniture that you'll love for years to come, not something that will break quickly and end up in a landfill.
And wood furniture is perfect for that.
It is.
It's an investment that can last a lifetime.
I couldn't agree more. As we've been talking, I've been thinking about all of the different ways wood furniture can change a home. It's not just about the way it looks,
Yeah, it's about the feeling.
Exactly.
It brings that warmth, comfort, and natural beauty. I think that's something we all crave these days.
It is. And speaking of that, remember we were talking about humidity and how it can affect wood?
Yes, that was really interesting.
Well, did you know that different types of wood have different levels of sensitivity to humidity?
Oh, really?
Yeah, hardwoods like oak and maple are usually more stable than softwoods like pine and cedar.
So if you live in an area with high humidity, maybe hardwoods would be a better choice.
They could be. And when it comes to wood movement, that expansion and contraction we talked about, did you know that wood moves more tangentially across the grain than radially along the grain?
Wow, I had no idea. Why is that important?
Understanding how wood moves is important when caring for large pieces like, tables or cabinets.
Okay.
For example, if you have a solid wood tabletop, you want to make sure it can expand and contract with humidity changes.
So how do you do that? Do you have to make, special adjustments?
Traditional woodworking techniques take that into account.
Okay.
Have you ever noticed those little wooden buttons or breadboard ends on tabletops?
I think I've seen those, but I never knew what they were for.
Those allow the wood to move without putting stress on the joints.
Wow, that's so smart. I'm really starting to appreciate, the craftsmanship that goes into making wood furniture.
It really is an art. And as we've been talking about all these different aspects, I've realized it's really a journey.
A journey? What do you mean?
It's not just about buying furniture and putting it in your home. It's about, learning about the different types of wood, the styles, the history, and the best way to care for it.
Oh, I love that. It's a journey of discovery and appreciation.
Exactly. Speaking of journeys, I think it's time to move on to our final part.
I agree. We've covered so much today. Different types of wood, mixing wood tones, caring for your pieces, even how wood moves.
And we even discovered a new style Japandi.
That's right. It's been a great conversation. But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. We've talked a lot about the practical side of wood furniture, but I think it's important to remember the emotional aspect too.
Absolutely. Wood furniture is more than just a functional object. It's something that can bring us joy and comfort and a connection to nature.
Exactly. And that's something worth celebrating. So as you go about your day-to-day, take a moment to appreciate the wood furniture in your life.
I think it really is. And it's something that we often overlook, We get so caught up in the hustle and bustle of daily life that we forget to pause and appreciate the simple things.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like we're always rushing from one thing to the next.
Right.
But taking a moment to just be present and appreciate the beauty around us. That's so important.
Absolutely. Now, earlier we were talking about choosing wood furniture for different rooms, and we covered the living room, dining room, kitchen, bedroom, and home office. But what about those smaller spaces, like a hallway or an entryway?
Oh yeah, those are good ones.
They're often overlooked, but they're great opportunities to make a design statement.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
Even a small piece, like a console table or a mirror with a nice wood frame, can have a big impact.
So true. It's all about creating those little moments of visual interest as you move through the house.
Exactly.
What kind of wood would you recommend for those spaces?
Well, it depends on the overall style of your home and the feeling you want to create. If you're going for something more formal, a darker wood like mahogany or walnut could work well. But if you want something lighter and airier, maple or cherry could be nice.
And what about functionality? Those spaces often need to serve a practical purpose as well, right?
Definitely. A console table with drawers can be great for storage, for keys, mail, that kind of thing.
Right.
And a bench with a storage compartment underneath is a great way to add both seating and storage.
Those are great ideas. Now, I'm curious, you've been on this quest to find the perfect live edge coffee table. Have you had any luck?
Actually, I found a local artisan who specializes in live edge furniture. I'm meeting with him next week to discuss some ideas.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you have any specific design ideas in mind yet?
I'm still brainstorming, but I'm thinking a walnut slab with a natural, organic shape.
Ooh, that sounds beautiful. It'll definitely be a statement piece.
I hope so.
It made me think about something. We've talked about sustainability and choosing FSC certified wood or reclaimed wood, but what about the environmental impact of, like, shipping furniture?
Yeah.
Especially if you're buying from a local artisan versus a big company.
That's a great point. Buying locally definitely reduces the carbon footprint associated with transportation.
Right.
And, supporting local artisans helps to keep those traditional woodworking skills alive as well.
It's about considering the whole picture, right? From sourcing the materials to the manufacturing process to how it gets to your home.
Exactly. And I think more and more consumers are starting to pay attention to that. They want to know where their furniture comes from and how it was made.
Right. And it goes beyond the environmental impact.
Yeah.
It's also about fair labor practices and supporting businesses that treat their workers well.
For sure. Consumers are becoming more discerning and want to support companies that align with their values.
That's something we can all feel good about, supporting those businesses that are doing things the right way. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, is there anything else you want to add? Any final words of wisdom for our listeners who are about to embark on their own wood furniture adventures?
I think the most important thing is to just have fun with it.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to experiment, mix and match, and most importantly, choose pieces that you love and that reflect your personal style.
It's your home. Make it your own.
Exactly.
And remember, wood furniture is so much more than just a functional object. It's a piece of nature, a piece of history, a piece of art.
I love that.
So, to all our listeners out there, happy decorating. May your homes be filled with the beauty of wood furniture.
And may you find joy in the journey.
That's a great way to put it. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll be back next week with another fascinating topic. Until then, happy decorating.